I wanted to touch a little bit about St. James. I know a lot of people are concerned about St. James and the future of healthcare in our community. The single most important issue, other than quality of life issues, like people talking about, is St. James. They're worried about St. James. St. James. I was on the board for 20 years, and a number of, at least maybe probably about 15, 16 years, maybe longer, the Sisters of Mercy affiliated with other religious healthcare orders, and they kind of formed this huge healthcare operation called Catholic Health East. And it was formed and it's headquartered in just outside of Philadelphia in one of the suburbs. It was meant to be, make St. James more competitive, moving into the 21st century. Allowing it to take advantage of better pricing and things like that. But the thing is, you can't run a hospital. You can't take the power away from a local board and make them advisory board, and then put it in the hands of people in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, who've never seen Hornell, don't know anything about Hornell, and then try to run rural health care in this area. It doesn't work. Didn't work. And after 15, 16, they finally figured that out. After Bill Connors passed away, God rest his soul, Catholic Health East then brought in someone from outside our community, the guy named Ted Liberty, and Ted worked as little as possible from St. James. He actually worked from his home in Geneseo. That's how much disdain he had for our community. So I was still on the board then. I kind of threw him under the bus, and they got him out of here. And usually when you want to get rid of someone, you promote him. They sent him down to Delaware. Now he's no longer with the hospital. And then they did a search, and that's primarily, early in that search, I stayed when Mary Loyal was hired. Catholic Health East brought it to the table. And Mary came really from a regulatory background. She was a nurse, but also she worked for the health department. And she was more of a regulatory thing. So when she got here, I don't think she could ever shift gears. Nice person, I wouldn't say anything bad about her, but she couldn't shift gears from running a rural hospital from being a regulator. So she went more looking at processes, more about trying to uncover mistakes that had been happening in the past versus trying to manage your rural healthcare system. And you have to manage. I mean, the healthcare environment is tough. No one says it's not tough. Reimbursements from all areas are dwindling. But rather than embrace, the suggestions from the board or from the medical staff, like she kind of circled the wagons, kind of insulated herself, rather than listen to what's going on. So you had a lot of, over a year ago, people don't know this, but over a year ago, the physicians actually voted no confidence in Mary LaRoe. And it wasn't made public. It was an internal matter, so what they did was supposed to meet with the physicians, and she met with them once during that year. So I was approached by a number of physicians. I do have some contacts at the state health department that I've known for years, and so I started inquiring with them. And I also called John Capasso from Catholic Health East, who was the vice president and was supposed to be up here helping them. And I called the Sisters of Mercy as mayor, saying, listen, not only are we worried about healthcare in our community, but St. James is an economic generator. They have 500 employees in St. James. What do you think that payroll is a week or bi-weekly or a year? And, where do they buy cars? Where do they live? Where do they, go to restaurants? Where do they stuff? 500, well, actually they have a full-time equivalence of probably over about close to 650. So if you, and I said, hey, if the hospital closes here in Hornell, we'll never, ever be able to recruit another job here to this community. So, you don't always put together the pieces of the puzzle. It's like the school district. If we don't, work with the school district and make it a strong school district and try to make that better, that's another important part of the puzzle when you're trying to build a community. Education, healthcare, neighborhoods, and so when you're trying to recruit business to a community, you're talking to the CEO, he's talking one thing, but the person that's going to make that decision is really the wife of the CEO. Because she's going to say, I'm not moving there. I mean, I'm not, look, did you drive down the street and see the condition of the houses? There's nothing there. And there's no hospital. That's it. So those are all things you have to consider when you're community leaders. And you have to work with those people. I just can't insulate myself saying that the hospital is not my problem, that's someone else's. I got a acidity rug. No, it is my problem. It's your problem. So Tuesday night we're having a forum with all the physicians, the medical staff, and the hospital at the main place. It's a dinner, and it's not open to the public. It's trying to rebuild trust among the physicians and the hospital administration. The new interim CEO down there, Jen Sullivan, I know her. She's a fabulous young lady. She's smart and she's engaged, and she'll do a wonderful job. There's talk that, the reason we're talking to Guthrie and from Sayre, PA, Robert Packer Hospital, Guthrie Health. I went down to see Scapoletti, Joe Scapoletti, who was the CEO, doctor, gastroenterologist, but also CEO of the hospital. Guthrie is a very fine system. But mostly Hornell people have the habit of going north, not east, for health care. So it wasn't going to be a great fit. And then their physician, how they manage their physician practices, employed physicians, the physicians kind of were getting, that's why you had a lot of physicians, leave the hospital and go away from hospital employment to go get their own. Thank God they stayed here, start their own practices, because they really didn't want to work for Guthrie. So that was another thing in the mix. So I think what we're going to end up, and I think it's going to end up on a very positive note for Hornell, that there'll be an affiliation with probably RGH. RGH has merged with Unity Health up in Rochester, and so which makes them the other 800-pound gorilla in the Rochester healthcare market. And now with the new healthcare as it's coming down with regards to as they roll out Obamacare, as things go, reimbursement rates are going to be based on not how many patients you see, but on outcomes. Healthy people. And you can take a sick person 150 different times and run them through a doctor's office and pay $150 for your doctor's visit, but if they're not getting any better, it's not doing anyone any good. That's why wellness visits, are under Obamacare now, you can't charge for, they're free. A mammogram, pap smear, they have to be provided for you. And any health plan. A colonoscopy, because those are all diagnostic tests that can keep you alive, keep you from getting deathly sick, keep you from colon cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer. So all those things are going to pay. So I think that you shouldn't despair. I think St. James is going to be very healthy. It's going to have a bright future, and we're going to be good. But it's going to know what it's going to take. When you go to your physician and you have to have a blood test, go to St. James and have it. You have to have an x-ray, go to St. James and have an x-ray. Have an ultrasound, go to St. James and have the ultrasound. You know, don't go to Noyes or Jones. You want to support your local hospital. You see they were rolling out that thing, our community, our hospital. And without that, click, turn out the lights. Because that single, a very important part of any plans for the future of our community. Okay. I was surprised, the first question, what about the sewer? So before it's asked, let me tell you where we are with it. Our sewer system, that section of our sewer system was built in 1892. So I would say whoever built it did a hell of a job because it's lasted quite a few years. Yeah. There's an old ceramic sewer. It's 24 inches in diameter. There's a main failure right in front of St. Anne, right in the intersection by St. Anne's Church. How it first manifested itself is that we were starting to see backup up Church Street. Not in the houses, but the line. We have a guy who runs the line every day to make sure the line's running. And we found that it was backing up to Church Street. So they come in and report to me and said, well, I think we got the Church Street blockage open. I said, hey, that's great news. And then about an hour later they come back and they said, hey, we got the big blockage, we know where it is. It's right there on Erie Avenue at the intersection, major failure. And that area right there, the main trunk line, it takes all the waste from the northern end of the city, North Hornell, Crowley Dairies. Crowley Dairies puts 300,000 gallons of stuff in there every day. Not to mention what all the other manufacturing plants, Stern, or whatever, up in that area. So we have 2 million plus gallons of sewer converging in this perfect storm down there, and we had that quick. So I declared it an emergency, and we got pumps in here, pumps that can handle 2 million gallons of sewage a day, not the little 4-inch pumps that we first were using, because that wasn't going to cut it. Particularly if you have a major rain event, like we've had a couple in the last, there's infiltration into the sewer lines. Forget it, there's been a lot of nastiness in people's basements. So we were able to get up there, and because I declared an emergency, we were able to dispense with a lot of the normal guidelines, bidding, stuff like that. And Kevin LaForge came in. He helped us locate and expose the failure. And he was able, through his contacts, to bring in pipes and the appropriate pipes to work the bypass. So I know, and I wouldn't like it any more than anyone else to have 2 million gallons of sewage flowing by my house, blocking my driveway for the last 4 weeks with a little telltale odor. I imagine it gets a little bit gnarly and impatient. But what we had to do was not just do a quick fix of that. Because of the age of it, we had to do our due diligence and make sure that there wasn't more impending failure. So the worst thing we could do is fix it and cover it up and pave it like everything was right with the world. And then the next week, there's another failure further down the line. So what we did, we called in a company called Pipe I. And what they do is they come in and they scrape all the gravel out of the lines. There's a lot of gravel. That pipe had so much gravel in it the flow of it was restricted by 50%. We're amazed that the sewage didn't come up in people's basements. So they got all the gravel out, then they send the camera in. They send the camera in to, you know, that could have been accomplished in a couple, 3 days if they were able to stay here for a couple of 3 days at a time. But they could come, then they had to go because they had other jobs. They were doing us a favor. So finally they come in, they completed their work, they scoped the line, and determined that there's 700 and some linear feet of pipe. Well, 700 feet times the quick estimate I had to replace it, you know, when you consider the purchase of the pipe, the paying posted rate, stuff like that, equipment, right? You're talking about $300 a linear feet. You're talking big money. You're talking $300,000–400,000. So I said, let's see if there's new technology out there called pipe trenchless technology. You don't have to dig. You can put an insert into the existing pipe if it meets the criteria. And what they do, it's pliable. They put it in there, they tie it up, then they heat it up, and it expands. And it takes the shape of the existing pipe. And this is the existing pipe in there has gone from round to egg shape. So it'll kind of support that. And then it hardens up, becomes a hard PVC, which actually is a better pipe because there's less friction in it. Things go through it at a quicker pace. So that's what we've determined that we're eligible to do. We can use that technology. So we have to dig and replace 200 linear feet versus 700 linear feet. So by taking our time, doing our due diligence, we'll probably save the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars on that repair. So that's where they're. So we hope to, and I've been talking to Environmental Facilities Corporation, the DEC. I've been looking, no stone unturned to see if there's any free money out there. But again, we live in a different world. There's no free money anymore. So I think we're going to qualify for a very low or no interest loan to get it done. And we're going to try to be creative and wrap it into our capital project we got going on at the water pollution control plant with starting in the spring. So that's still, how we pay for it's still up in the air, but it looks like we'll be able to save taxpayers some money. Of course, ALSTOM, they're making their comeback slowly but sure. They have Patco, they have 2 Boston contracts, they picked up a Maryland contract, and also they're moving into what they call the light rail vehicle, LRV. Is a light rail vehicle, which is a light vehicle like you'll see in Charlotte or even in Buffalo. They're a not as heavy a gauge rail car as like a New York City subway car. And there's a big market for those. And ALSTOM just won a big contract in Ottawa, Canada. And it's a huge contract. Those first 2 train sets will be built in Hornell. So that's good news, and it also may have some ancillary positive effect for us here in the city as time goes on. I'd like to say that ALSTOM will regain, you know, and employ 1,200, 1,500 people again. I don't think you'll ever see that level of ALSTOM again, but I think their goal is to try to get to about 650, 700 employees and maintain. That is their goal for a long-term impact on our community.